Part 4 is housing. Most people start off their life in the rental market because you don't have enough money to buy a house or even obtain a loan for a house. Requires a sizable chunk of money in those cases to do that, or commitment, or stability in job, or whatnot. Credit, basically. So you'll be in the rental market, and you may, rent from an apartment complex, or you may rent a whole house with a few people or by yourself, or you may rent a room in a house. There's all kinds of rental stuff. But most people, when you go to rent, and it's not your parents or something else, that they'll ask for a first, a last, and a security deposit based upon monthly. Sometimes you can negotiate those, but for the most part, you pretty much are going to need that every time you move. And you can't always count on your security deposit from your current renting place. You will tend to be more transient when you rent because rental dollars and prices vary. And so you have to shop for deals and where you'd like to live and all kinds of aspects. Whereas a house, it's the same thing early up on front of the house. When you rent, most of the time you're going to be paying some utilities such as electricity, such as cable, such as water. A few places nowadays still include water, but you're just including it in the rent. So it's important to know some of those costs in your areas. They're cheaper for apartments than they are for houses and stuff like that, because air conditioning a house is more expensive than air conditioning a small apartment. But you definitely need, you'll figure those out pretty soon. But you're going to ask before you get out there, or you just have to know those dollars. I'm going to go through a housing one in this example, so don't get freaked out at that. But also, when you're renting, should your AC crap out, the roof develop a hole, a lot of times appliances such as oven and refrigerators, they're all, they break. You call up the landlord, they're supposed to get you a new one. You don't have to pay for that type of stuff. So that's a difference in the renting market. Most people eventually buy a house at some point in their life, but a lot of people just rent forever, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just realize what it is. So once you own your own home, then usually you do that via a bank loan, and I've included condos or villas or whatever you have, something where you have some property value. You'll typically go and get a 30-year bank loan. Rarely do you just have $200,000 in your pocket and you go buy a house, or $100,000 or a $15,000 condo or whatever. I know it's a cheap condo, but so be it. But you'll start to experience other costs such as property taxes, insurance, not just on the house, but if somebody slips and falls out front, you'll want that insurance when they come looking for your negligence. Broken stuff is something like I talked about earlier. Air conditioning, refrigerators, all that stuff is expensive. Holes in the roof, showers, bathrooms that I just, stuff that leaks, stuff that does whatever it does. You'll need to be able to, you have to pay for that yourself. And a lot of people say, hey, it's my house, I can do anything I want. But as you learn in life and you go along, there are different things. If you live in a condo, you have a lot of rules that you have to follow, and then there are deed restricted houses, and you just can't play music even in a normal city housing. Owning your own house, a lot of times you can't put a sidewalk. There's all kinds of permits. I can't just build a deck out back, so just be aware of that. I'm not negativing it, just saying, hey, it's not always about the freedom. There always is some restriction somewhere, but that's a little bit about owning a house. So the interest, some financials on just a routine house purchase. I've mocked some numbers up here. Just pretend you got. I'm doing the numbers for easy thing here, but roughly a $200,000 house. You put a little bit of money down. That's the way things work nowadays. You can put a lot of money down, and you'll have less of a loan to borrow. But anyways, a $200,000 loan with a 30-year. You can always look this type of stuff up, but you're around $1,100 is usually your principal and interest. Early on in those 30 years, your interest is a huge amount of it, and then later, that interest goes down as you pay down principal, because you're only paying down $300 worth of principal on a $200,000 loan early on, and eventually that starts to catch up because each month your loan is a little bit less, but you're paying a lot of interest when you own a house, and I know that interest can be tax deductible. Just look into it, but don't always count that as a windfall. Realize that's an expense. And then a lot of times you have your choices on stuff like property taxes, insurance, and in Florida we need flood insurance. Um, that you can either pay those on an annual basis if you have that chunk of change, if you're a saver and you have that chunk of money, or you can just get it in with the escrow and they'll give you a little bit of fee for that. But anyways, so it's really a $1,700 a month payment when you factor in those property taxes and insurance and floods, which I've got down there at $200 a month a piece, or it's $2,000 a year for each one of those, or $6,000 a year. So remember, when you buy a house, it's $6,000 a year that you don't get any of that property taxes back, except for municipal improvements. You don't get any of that insurance back unless you have a disaster, and same thing with the flood. So it's just $6,000 a year, and you start saying, hey, that's divided by 12, right? $500 a month. Hey, I could have rented. Could have rented for $500 a month. So be it. There are advantages of owning a house, but don't always think there's total advantages. Interest rates do matter to a certain degree, because it's a huge long loan. And just for example, I'm going to talk about interest rates not mattering sometimes, but this is one of those things where you want to do the best you can on interest rate, and they will make a big difference. But always do the numbers, crank them out there. I've also thrown up a couple calculations there. So $1,100 at 12 months times 30 years, you will eventually end up paying a huge amount over what you borrowed over that time, and that's normal interest. Sometimes people don't realize what future value interest, but you'll end up paying $396,000 on a $200,000 loan. So just be aware that you'll be paying twice as much as you are borrowing if you do that type of thing. And when you factor in insurances and stuff like that to owning the house, and you go $1,700, you're actually only paying $612,000 over those 30 years. Will come out of your, of course, the insurance may go down a bit once you get past the initial stage, but property taxes and flood insurance are probably never going up. I mean, they're never going down. They're only going up. So yeah, I know this. Money will be worth less in the future, but just realize that you divide that back over 30 years, it's basically $1,700 a month. So sometimes you can get a nice big apartment for $1,700 a month and not worry about a darn thing. And I haven't factored in, like I said, the breakables. So just for reference, also, if you're just stash away $500, so if you rent $1,200 place and you stashed away $500, I know that kind of sucks for 30 years to do that, but realize that even at a marginal 3% yield investment return, that would be $290,000 with the compound interest over years, and hell, you could at that point buy your house. But these are just financial numbers to get your head around. And when budgeting for that monthly, if you own a house, we already just talked about the $1,700 that you're going to put in for that loan and that insurance and stuff. But realize that in a reasonably sized house, power averaging $200 in the cold months and $500 in the hot months down here in Florida, you're about $350. And you have stuff like utilities, water, trash pickup, sewer, that kind of stuff. Run you about that. Cable. I know it looks like a big number, but all of a sudden that's your internet and if you have a home phone anymore, usually you don't. You rent a couple movies, and you got like 5 set-top boxes and some DVRs. You know how it is. Somewhere in that. And then I do my own yard for mowing. That would go up a little bit, but you need a spray guy to come around if you like a yard. If you like dirt, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you like a yard, and those aren't really, those are fixed because I'm paying other people, so it's about $2,400 a month. So you always have a fixed, and then you have variables, such as buying a lawnmower or the other stuff that I talked about. So it's fairly expensive to own a house. You can go turn to your parents now and go, oh, wait a minute. Gee, you were letting me live here for free for all those years. I know you were under 18, or now that you are 18, just realize what their expenses are, and these do vary, but certainly houses are much more expensive than $200,000 houses. You can go Zillow your house and see what it's worth, and maybe they bought it at a cheaper price, but those are the values of buying houses nowadays. So I'm not poo-pooing it here, and just saying that your housing, you will have to consider housing. It is a significant portion of your life, expenses for your life.